Slain is a two-dimensional action platformer developed by Wolf Brew Games. Right off the bat, I'm going to mention that I really wanted to like this game as it looked right up my alley. Unfortunately, Slain is littered with poor design choices as well as programming errors. The first major issue involves controls. To start, forget about using a keyboard to control the game, as there's over half a second of input lag tied to it. In any game, input lag is bad, but especially horrific in a platformer. Thankfully, using a controller neutralizes this issue. Still regarding control, however, the game makes no effort to teach you how to actually perform any actions. Early on, you'll be informed that blocking is a great way to nullify projectiles, yet it does not in any way mention how a block would be performed. This one isn't too hard to figure out just by trying every option, and it happens to be bound to holding down on the left stick. Somewhat later on, you'll be informed that spirit bombs are a great way to deal with large packs of monsters. This information is terrific, but again, it fails to mention how to perform this action. After a couple minutes of testing, I managed to find that a spirit bomb is performed by holding down and pressing B. Now I want to clear some other buttons up first. You can shoot a ball of magic by pressing the right shoulder button. Also, on the B button, when not crouching, you will perform a decapitation attack. Knowing this, one would likely assume that a spirit bomb, a magical attack, would be linked to the button that performs your other magical attack and not a physical one. And finally, there is absolutely nothing bound to Y, the northmost face button. Why on earth would you bind a more complex action when there is a perfectly good button just sitting there doing literally nothing? Moving on, I'd like to talk about the gameplay. There are many enemy placements that seem designed to be annoying to get around. Take this section here, where there's an enemy endlessly spawning slimes over on the right hand side wall. You have no way of getting to the enemy without having to jump on the claw, which launches you in the sky. After landing, you will inevitably come down on the pool of slimes, and are essentially stun-locked. The optimal way to take care of the spot is to use your spirit bomb after landing, but I imagine many players will still be left wondering how to perform that ability at this point in the game. Furthermore, there are sections that are clearly there just to eat up time. Take this part as an example. You need to ride these platforms across a death pit, but there are no obstacles or enemies in your way, so there's quite literally zero challenge. Why does this section exist? Also on the subject, nearly every elevator in the game is tremendously slow. There is absolutely no gameplay justification for the elevators to move this damn slow. Again, in most of these cases there are no threats of enemies, so you're just sitting there waiting. Occasionally you'll come across items that change your weapon to either a fire sword or an icy axe. These power-ups, however, are completely useless, since once you get them for the first time you can switch your weapons on the fly with the D-pad, and you cannot miss them. Though I suppose you wouldn't know that you can switch out your weapons whenever you wish, since it never makes you aware of that. The game clearly tries to set a serious tone, but the dialogue is so terrible at times that it can't be taken seriously at all. One of the NPCs honestly says BTW instead of by the way. Another shortens thanks to THX. Such abbreviations are not fitting to the theme of the game in any way. Perhaps what makes the game the most disappointing is the combat. All it boils down to is mashing the attack button and occasionally backdashing against some of the beefier enemies. Also, oftentimes, enemies will for no reason in particular be able to attack you during your attack string. Finally, the game has quite possibly one of the worst endings I've ever experienced in a video game. Without spoiling anything, after finishing the last level, the game ends with a still image and text that reads, "To be continued," followed by text that reads, "Credits." At this point you imagine that the credits would start rolling, right? But nope, the game just soft locks and you're forced to Alt F4 out of the game. I can't fathom how the game can be sold in this state. Did nobody that tested this game reach the end? Was the game even tested at all? For all the issues that I've mentioned, I still feel like Slain can be a good game at its core, but a lot of work needs to be done to get it to that state. Currently it feels like less of a complete product than most early access titles. I can't recommend the game to anybody in its current condition. And I'd like to leave you now with the ending to Slain, so spoiler warning and all that.